Welcome to Fearlessly Made You. I am your host, Kristie Tobias. Joining me today are guests just striving to dominate in their personal and professional lives while answering the question, what does it mean to be fearlessly made? Welcome back to Fearlessly Made You, friends. I am so excited because one of the great things that I love about Fearlessly Made You, as you guys know, Fearlessly Made You is that spinoff of my book, Fearlessly Made You, which is about my story and journey with post-traumatic stress disorder. And the thing that I love about that is that I'm able to not only share that story, but also connect with others who have had similar experiences with trauma and are in the process of healing. And that's what today is about. I can't wait to introduce you to a dear friend and guest, Alicia. But before we do that, wanted to share as well, one of the other great parts about Fearlessly Made You is the connections we're able to make within the community with organizations like Dillard's, who has styled me today, and who you'll actually get to learn a little bit more about some of the things that Alicia's been able to partner with Dillard's on as well to help support our community and to support these stories that are so important to share. But without further ado, let me tell you guys just a little bit about our guest today, Alicia Tappan. So Alicia is the executive director of the Secret Place Home. And so one of the things that Alicia is able to do is talk about her journey and her story with human trafficking. And so I always want to make sure I give you guys just a precursor on anything that's really focused on trauma and healing. Just know that this is Alicia's story and we're so honored to have her share it. But just be aware that, that may be triggering for some of you. So please take this conversation at your own pace. One of the things though that Alicia is very honest about is being able to collaborate across the community. She is able to share not just her story, but work very directly with commercial sexual exploitation of children and focused on awareness and education around that. So much so that in 2019, Florida's Attorney General actually named Alicia a Survivor of the Year because of the work that she's been able to do. Now, I can talk to you guys all day long about Alicia, but there is no one better to talk about Alicia than Alicia. So without further ado, Alicia, welcome to Fearlessly Made You.
Hi, Kristie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited, and you guys should be so excited because one of the things that I love, as we've talked about, is there's this honest vulnerability about being able to talk about some things that can be uncomfortable for others, but that are healing for those of us that have gone through trauma, those of you that have gone through trauma. And today is one of those days. So Alicia, I would love for you just to talk with our Fearlessly Made You crew about who you are, how we got connected and why this story is so important.
Sure. Thank you. Well, number one, it's an honor to be able to share and be able to express it in such a vulnerable place and where you feel safe to do that. So thank you, Kristie, for setting that space. My story really, it begins way, way, way back before Y2K in 2000 even, changed the world. I was National Honor Society president, student council president, both parents at home. I had a younger brother, and we're from a very small town in Michigan. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I had this vision of working with women and children of some sort of trauma, even though I didn't have any personal trauma at that moment. But what I didn't know was that there was a predator posing as a coach in my high school. Oh, wow. And unbeknownst to faculty, staff, and parents, he was recruiting and grooming children to do work for him. So in exchange for, maybe a makeup test or starting position on the track team or homework that needed to be finished or just an excused absence, he would provide an opportunity for them to sell fake Rolex watches, create homemade porn, and promise that they didn't have to go to college a virgin. And it sounds kind of weird, like how did he get away with this? But what we realize now about human trafficking is that these traffickers are charismatic, they're good looking, they're funny, they have enough money to be able to cover their tracks. And so he was just posing as a coach, like a father to the fatherless to these guys. Wow. So one night I get invited to the end of the year track meet celebration at his house, which wasn't weird in my small town. He had, the party, invited everybody out with a barbecue. And about 8:30, he tells parents and staff to, it's Friday, go home. I'll keep the kids for a couple hours and then I'll kick them out around 10. And so the parents left. And about a dozen of us were led down into his finished basement. Also not weird because we had finished basements in Michigan.
Yeah.
And he puts us all kind of in the couch and says, hey, I want you to watch this video, but I don't want to be responsible for pushing play. And so the funny kid of the group like jumps up and pushes play on this VCR, and now we're being exposed to a homemade porn by 2 of our friends.
Wow.
And I can't make this part up.
Yeah.
When it ends, we're all in shock, and the main characters walk down into the basement. And no one knew what to do, but the coach did. So he turns down the lights, turns up the music, opens his bar, and he uses the GHB date rape drug to get us all drugged. I don't have a lot of memory from that point to the next point where my head hits the back of a hot tub and I'm being raped by 2 of my friends. And I panic, right? I get out of the hot tub and I'm looking for my clothes and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And all of a sudden he says, you're too drunk to drive. You have to stay. And I guess I pass back out. I wake up under a coffee table and my stuff is neatly packed on top of it. And I've been like washed, like I'm an Herbal Essence girl and I smell like Head and Shoulders, right? And I panic and I leave out the back door because I'm too afraid to go out the front door that I went in the night before.
Yeah.
That shame, that guilt, that doubt all sets in right then and there. And I go to work because that's what I've done for the last 2 summers is go to work on Saturdays. And so I go to work and I tell my friend who is just a few years older than me, I think I had sex with 2 guys in one night last night. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
She said, well, Alicia, you might as well get used to being called a slut because that's all you're ever going to be known as.
Wow.
So I was silenced then.
Yeah.
I finished my shift. I call my best friends who I was supposed to spend the night with just a few houses down.
Yeah.
And I say, hey, I think I was raped last night, And they're like, Alicia, rape's a really strong word. You don't want to go around accusing them, do you? They've got full ride scholarships. And I just knew like that I couldn't tell my parents.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to get through this. And it didn't help that the rest of the summer, he started having guys pick me up and take me to other graduation parties or college parties. And while people are celebrating upstairs, I'm getting raped in the basement by their kid. And it just kept happening. And they say, like, well, why doesn't she leave or why doesn't she tell? Well, they started threatening me, my brother. They started slashing my tires, putting dog poop on my windshield, threatened to expose me to the school. And I got calls all summer long from the advisors of the extracurricular groups I was a part of. These leadership positions I worked so hard to get into were like, we heard about your reputation this summer. We're going to ask you to step down. So I didn't believe anybody would believe me. It wasn't until the athletic director of my school kind of sat me down and he said, Alicia, what happened to you? That's the pinnacle question, Kristie. When we talk about trauma, it's not what did you do? It's not, what were you doing or how come you did this or, you should have known better. That's what I got. You should have known better.
Yeah.
No, it was, what happened to you? Something's different, right? Yeah. You're skipping school. It's clear that you're not showering anymore, right? I was doing drugs. I was drinking on a regular basis. I was suicidal. I attempted suicide 3 times and couldn't die. Yeah. So it felt like I couldn't do anything right.
Yeah.
And my best friend sat behind me my entire semester of AP English that senior year and didn't speak a word to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't believe anything was somebody else's fault. I believed it was mine, and therefore it was my responsibility to just get over it. And he asked that question, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I told him, I felt like this was my one moment. Just tell him, right? So I say, I think I was raped. And unbeknownst to me, he started doing this investigation. He finds the sex tapes, 33 other victims just like me.
Wow.
This coach had made tapes, and we're uploading it onto the internet as porn. And back then, it was dial-up internet, so it took an hour. You had to be intentional to do that. And so I became basically the spokesperson for this case. I didn't want to, I wanted to go to college and just get on with my life. But my mom looked me in the face and said, if not you, then who?
Yes.
Who's going to stop him?
And I love that. I want to pause there because as you all are listening and y'all know, there is vulnerability and honesty in everything we talk about. And it is why I started this conversation with, take this conversation at your own pace. When you've gone through, and I'm going to get emotional because y'all know my story is so close to this one with the rape and sexual assault from a full-grown adult man that I thought I trusted and shouldn't have. And when you get the question finally of someone who asks you as a child, because we need to level set that. You were a child. You weren't a grown adult. You may have looked like a grown adult. You were a child. And it doesn't matter how you looked. It doesn't matter what that part of you was stripped from you. And nobody was supporting you. No one was there to keep you safe. And we always want to ask the questions, well, where were your parents? It's like, no, someone else is responsible for this. And you can't sit here and ask those things. It's let's talk about where you are and what happened. So I'm so glad that was where you were able to actually share your honesty. But that must have been both a relief and also probably the hardest thing in the world you ever had to do, to actually share your story.
Definitely at that point, because I got called down to the guidance counselor's office. So I had no idea he had put this investigation together. I get called down there, right? Law enforcement's there, women from a shelter, the dean of students, everybody in this little office. And they're like, Alicia, tell us what happened last summer. I pled the fifth.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be the one to tell on everybody because I was already getting bullied.
Exactly.
I was already having to clean my own name off of For a Good Time, Call Alicia in the boys' bathroom. I was having to fix my own vandalism, bullying, and I didn't want the attention.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's that high school experience that everyone's like, just toughen up. It's okay. It's like, no. We don't know where the core of what's going on is happening. And, I'm going to use this as a good disclaimer for anyone that's listening, because I know we've got moms and dads that are listening to Fearlessly Made You. Think about the core and root of what's happening around anyone that we see experiencing, whether it's bullying or whatever it is, but just pay attention to your people. Because there could be something else going on, and we have to ask the right question of, what's happening with you? Like, what happened to you?
Right. What happened to you? That was the thing. And I tell that now as I educate and train because, people are like, well, that was just rape. Well, okay, number one, it's not just rape.
Exactly.
Right? It's a giant thing.
Yes.
Number two, he had created a system.
Exactly.
He had teachers covering for the students who were doing this stuff. He was getting, what I found out was like the president of the Board of Education, the dean of students, the principal, some really big players in my town had been to these parties before.
Yeah.
And he was creating sex tapes of children and selling it. That's what we call commercial sexual exploitation of children, or CSEC, and human trafficking for minors. So I didn't know that though, right?
Yeah.
I go to court. I don't know if you've ever been to court.
I have. Okay. I definitely have.
And it's one of those things where as a child, like you said, you're not really prepared for that.
Yeah.
You have no idea. And so I had to ride up and down the elevator with my rapist and my trafficker. I had to sit in court and they said, how do we know you didn't rape them?
Wow.
Can you just imagine, you know? And I was like, well, maybe they're victims too. Like, I'm not really sure.
And at this point, how old are you?
I'm 17 years old.
A baby.
I'm a baby.
A baby.
And I'm trying to become an adult. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but that dream was covered in trauma. I began cutting myself, like I was not prepared to take on the new life that I was going to be given.
Yeah.
And there weren't enough supports in there for me.
Yeah.
Number one, being in a small town. Number two, not really wanting to share.
Yeah.
And number three, being so smart that I could just put on the mask and
Yeah.
walk through life as if nothing was wrong. And it was very devastating because even though we win, yay!
I'm so glad.
It was me against my hometown school district. All other 33 girls moved on and left me to do this on my own. So the rejection and abandonment just got more in
just
depth.
for you to feel. So I keep pausing us, and there's a reason, and Alicia probably doesn't know this. We're going to pause and take a sip because I want to cheers you. I want to cheers your ability to share this story. But also, guys, I want to pause and have a human moment because, and this is probably going to surprise you a little bit. Y'all, you guys know me, and for those of you that have been watching the show and following for a little while, and I'm thinking about I'm going to give a quick little shout out to Michelle Bright, one of my close friends who's probably already picking up on this. I had to put up a little bit of a shield in this conversation with you because I knew I wouldn't be able to get through it. And be able to authentically be there with you in it. It's so much, and you were so young. We were so young, right? And we were told, everyone told us it was, what we were feeling was, oh, this is normal. Right. This is and then you're by yourself when you're dealing with the trauma. And that's the part that no one talks about.
Right.
You're alone when you have to deal with the aftermath of it all. Yes, I stood up. Yes, I used my voice. That wasn't the hardest part.
Right.
Now it's, well, now what do I do? Like, just say it, Melanie, what the hell do I do with now all of this mess that has just happened?
And how do you just do life next?
Exactly.
And I think we just sort of like bull in a china shop. We just go
Yes,
through it, and it
yes.
doesn't matter what we leave in our wake.
Exactly.
And so I took it with
that's
me.
what happens. Yeah.
And I moved from Michigan down to Florida because I got accepted at the University of West Florida and started my bachelor's degree in psychology. And I just was the girl that could, go to school 8 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'd party all night, and then I'd wake up and do it again. Found myself escorting, found myself having sex for rides and jobs that I just didn't even
build up this routine that's safe for you. I mean, and it's same. Like I did not escort, but for those, most of y'all know, I was just having sex to have sex because it was now that part that was taken from me was like, well, I'll put some power back into it.
It's control.
So we think exactly. It's the wrong way to put some control back in it, but it was our way of having control.
Well, and one of the girls that we work with, she asked me just the other day, like, how come we start to become like almost like a fetish of the type of trauma we had that was sexual?
Oh, that's
and
a good
I literally
question.
had to be like, well, your brain got rewired,
Yeah.
right? Like the pleasure centers were going off at the same time the violence things were going off. So your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex are like trying to figure out, is this good or bad? It feels good, but it hurts. And so now that's the only thing that works to get you pleasure, you know? And so the depression just keeps going. The anxiety keeps going.
Yep.
I become homeless. I can't figure out how to get a job. I get a degree. Great, right? It's the same as winning this court thing.
Yeah.
But, my trafficker got 5 years in jail. That's it. And my rapists both got 5 years registered sex offenders. So they both served their time before I even identified as what really happened.
Absolutely.
And it took another survivor of sex trafficking to tell her story to me almost 10 years later. And I was like, oh, that's what that was. How did I get in that hot tub?
Yeah.
It's coercion, right? Force, fraud, and coercion is what you need to be able to prove a human trafficking case. But for kids, we can't consent. So we don't need that piece. And so I wandered for a long time going, what is my purpose? Why am I here? How come I can't die? There's nothing good happening in my life. And every single time I would find myself in a new position, I would find myself in back old habits, you know?
Well, and because no one teaches you how to live life in general. Like, let's be really honest. Like, we've got people along the way that are helping you guide. Like, we talk about how hard life is. This isn't even just life.
Right.
Like, we're saying life plus shit, and then more of it, and then I'm still trying to have to be an adult human, and I don't even know how to recover from no longer being a child,
Right.
and having all of that stripped from me,
Right.
Like that is, there's so much around it, and I love that you say it took someone else who had gone through human trafficking, who could say, this is what you are going through. And I think we all have those realization moments where someone or something brings us back to the core of what happened. And for those of you that are in this space right now, as you're like, what happened to me? What haven't I thought about, or what haven't I been honest with myself about? I'm not pushing you, but I'm challenging you just a little bit to start to identify, is this something that I need to go outside of myself for? Like, do I need to have a conversation with someone? Because it can't be just you going through healing. You've got to have those people that are there to support you.
Yeah, and I, moving away from everything I knew, I thought I could just move on.
Right.
I think that's what we all think.
Yep.
And when that didn't work, I tried again, and I moved somewhere else, and then I moved somewhere else. And I just kept falling and failing and not being able to become this person who worked with women and children. That's what I wanted to do. Remember, that doctor in me was buried. And so it wasn't until 2016, I actually saw this article. My trafficker, he gets out of jail. He starts his own business. He rapes and beats his wife. She drops the charges. He gets caught for embezzling $140,000.
This is just a fantastic human,
right?
Let's be honest.
And the judge, it's written in this article, said, if it wasn't for the girl in the hot tub, we wouldn't know how evil this man was.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, you have to tell your story.
Yes.
Because if you don't, then they will continue to get away with it. So fast forward, right? I find some healing as far as I didn't know how to be in a relationship at all.
Of course not. Of course.
I'm a terrible date, but I'm really good in bed.
Look at us having skills.
Right? Look at me go. And so that's what my worth became.
Yeah.
Is can I please this person? Can I get what I need? And then how do I survive after that? And
I'm having lots of aha moments as we're having these conversations, by the way, Alicia.
Okay.
Like lots of interesting aha moments. Not that I haven't been through therapy myself, but having a friend, and this is going to sound, it shouldn't sound terrible, it's just that connecting point. Alicia and I connected because of our stories. We are friends because we are human and love each other. And so when you have those people, you're able to see more things about your story with that connecting partner. And so it's just, there's lots of like, I'm like, yep, that was me. That was me.
I spent probably a good 5 years just figuring that out. Once I identified, I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. I have supernatural knowledge.
Yeah.
People are talking to me and all of a sudden I know everything. Like,
yes.
It became this really intense experience for me, which I think, I give it to God for that because it's just, I didn't know what to do. And I was chasing the world, trying to find my purpose, my passion. I wasn't afraid of dying. I wasn't afraid of living. Right. I was safer with gang members and guns than I was going to therapy.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I was happy to just like be a nomad. And then I got so burnt out and tired. Like I got so tired. And there was this one man who was the only person about my age at the bar that I worked with that he would come in and he just kept telling me I had so much potential. I had so much to offer the world and how come I was dumbing myself down and making myself ugly when I was so pretty, right? And he proposed.
Oh,
woohoo!
Surprise.
Right? I got my master's in international psychology. I was working full time. I call it shucking oysters, making that discipline and obedience like work together for me. And he just fell in love with me. And I had to tell him like, when he proposed, I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Actually, I threw an F-bomb in there.
Yeah.
And like, I'm unlovable. Like, this is not, I will break you.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, no, like, I love you. And I want to be with you, and I don't care because I couldn't have kids. I was told like that wasn't going to work for me. I had parts of my uterus removed. And I said, well, that's great. You haven't had trauma, so you know how to be in love with me. But I have to learn how to love you.
Yes.
And that means I have to get over the addictions that I still have. I have to get over this self-worth that I don't have.
Yeah.
And he was just the sweetest person I ever met. So I said yes after the whole like shock value.
Yeah.
We get married. We moved down here from Colorado, so I was there, and now I'm back in Florida, in Pensacola, and I couldn't get a job again, and it was easy to like start making mistakes.
Yeah.
But I told him, I said, I really believe like I want to have a family. I want to be like this doctor. This is my dream. Will you support that?
Yeah.
Right. And so he did. He stayed working with his company in Colorado and traveled a lot. We went to a church, and I heard this pastor say, get down on your knees and ask God for what breaks his heart for you.
Oh.
Stop going after your purpose and your passion. Those are great things. Those are inside of you. But ask God that. And I was like, I've tried everything else.
Yeah.
So I do it, and I hear the whisper, find my missing children. And I was like, I can't even have kids. How am I going to find children?
Yeah.
But wouldn't you know, like the next job opportunity I get is working in an adoption field and foster care. And that's where I learn about more human trafficking. And I'm like, holy moly, like this stuff's happening every day.
Yeah.
And then I was advocating. I just started telling my story. And my husband will be really proud. He's like, we started family planning and it was like, boom, first shot. I got pregnant, and I didn't know what that was going to be like because I was still in trauma, and I was.
And let's do a nice little shout out to your husband.
He's so great, Brian Tappan.
Yes. First of all, thank you for seeing Alicia for exactly the person that she has always been, but that was squelched and tamped down from all of the trauma. Thank you for loving her.
Yeah.
So I think,
and it's the best.
Yeah, and she's the most lovable human in the world, but
I wasn't.
Her. Yeah, you reminded her that she is.
We had to go through a lot of things. Like I said, I had to learn how to love him. Like I didn't like to be touched, and his love language is physical touch.
Yeah.
Right? Like I had to learn how to do that and not feel like everything was going to be sex. Like,
yes.
I didn't know. And so anyway, I'm out there advocating. I start telling my story. I've got one baby, in my belly. I've got one strapped to my back. Like I'm out there talking about human trafficking. Yeah. And the head pastor of Liberty Church, which is an international network actually, her and her husband, Kristen Lipscomb, we're starting this safe house for girls of sex trafficking. And I was out there trying to build a safe house, like, and it was divine intervention, right? She just was like, why don't you come be the program director for what the secret place is going to be?
Yeah.
And so we did. We spent 2 years writing the program, getting it licensed, everything that we wanted it to be. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
You know, the community really rallied, Kristie. Like, the roof was donated by Junior League. Act One Flooring put it in, the floors, and everything in between. All 5 bedrooms and baths were donated.
I love
everything.
that.
It was brand new. It was beautiful. We were so excited. And then the dreadful year that we do not name, 2020 came around, right?
2020, oh.
So just imagine, right? We're
Yes.
trying to figure this out. And we started to notice that there was an increase and a spike in sexual exploitation.
Yep.
The victims were actually more traumatized than they'd ever been. The isolation piece and the drug addictions were just so high that the level of care that they needed wasn't necessarily written for the policies and procedures of a safe house.
Yeah.
So it was too expensive. I won't go into all the drama, but in 9 months, we shut it right back down. Hardest decision you want to make, but what it did was give me the opportunity to give birth to the program I really wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
And with Kristen and our board of directors, who were all phenomenal, diverse, and very intelligent people, they were like, well, you know, businesses change their model within a year, no big deal.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's that easy? Let's just do it. So with a third of the budget, half as many staff, same building, we just removed the residential piece.
Okay.
We were able to go out and take these girls from their situations, bring them in, interrupt their trauma for just a little bit,
Yep.
and then, you know, help them navigate that independent living piece, or if they're in foster care or whatever that is. And that's what I like to tell people. Yes, we always need more beds.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that I'm going to deny. But if we had intensive trauma-informed care, human trafficked trained,
Yeah.
case management
Yes.
at the foundation, not the specialization,
Yes.
the foundation of what we do.
Yeah.
Families will be healthier all the way around.
Yes.
And those people who are being removed are going to get the help they really need, because
Yes.
7 to 9 months in a program isn't long enough to get the healing
Yep.
that you need.
Yep.
It's a lifetime. So we became an advocacy center and service provider, still working with the Department of Children and Families and our community-based care agencies and the communities. And when we were only legally allowed to work with 5 girls in the safe house, we now have 26 in our program.
Alicia, oh my goodness. Okay, guys, did y'all hear, like, and I know you did, but let's unpack that for a little bit. So we have Alicia, 17-year-old Alicia, telling the story of being human trafficked and not really understanding it. Now we have not 17-year-old Alicia
Right.
telling the story of how she was able to not, and y'all always know, I don't ever say you move on from trauma, because you never do.
Right.
You move forward through the surviving to what I would call this is that thriving phase of allowing your story to take shape in other people's stories.
Right.
And that's where you're at. And that is truly the definition of fearlessly made you. It's exactly why we have these conversations to the core, like quite literally to the core of where this conversation started, as y'all know. So hearing that, though, it brings about the question, how do you feel now? Like, it's that real honest, like, how do you feel now?
I'm in my prime.
You are. You are.
I thought I was done, you know, like again, couldn't burn out, but just got relit, that fire. I'm actually completely sober, which I have never been able to be.
Yeah.
And so just in the last couple of years have I taken those last pieces of trauma out of my backpack and
Yep.
put them down.
Yep.
So I really I'm not carrying that around anymore, that weight.
Doesn't that feel good to release
Oh, gosh.
it? Oh my gosh, because we all have, like you'd mentioned before, and I think a lot of people don't know, is when you are going through major trauma, you have to find something to distract you, which oftentimes ends up in forms of addiction.
Right.
And things can be addicting without you having an addiction.
Right.
But it's very hard to not have something to,
Right.
to hold on to. And when you release, and as y'all know in previous episodes, I talked about, currently I'm in a journey without alcohol, and it's felt wonderful to release it. Not that I had an addiction to alcohol, but it's an addictive substance.
Absolutely.
And it replaces a lot of things in your life.
Your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to, right?
Exactly.
I found out through the same thing, getting sober from alcohol and other drugs, like I didn't realize that I was even addicted.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, except for I didn't realize that until somebody said, well, would you call yourself an alcoholic? And I was like, no, no,
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, I don't know when I haven't had a drink for more than a month or whatever.
Yeah.
And now, being completely clear of that, I don't have the nightmares. I don't have the flashbacks, the visions. I'm not irritable and cranky.
Yes.
My kids and I have a better relationship than we've ever had. And my husband and
releasing
literally
that,
tell you, like, I'm even a better
the
lover.
wonderful husband. Again, coming up.
I'm more intimate than I've ever been. And
Yeah.
not sexually, like I can give physical touch and it doesn't bother me.
Yes.
I scratched his back one morning and he was like, you've never done that.
Oh, Alicia. Oh, it's those moments.
Yep.
So, and that's the thing is I think there's power in the small moments.
Yeah.
But there's beauty in this journey that you've
Right.
been on. And so I want to kind of take us into now, as you said, you're in your prime, you're having these beautiful relationships. You've released, because I think that's the thing too, and I don't know about you, but I'm sure you can relate. When you're in the heat of holding on to the burden of trauma, it feels like you keep going back down the rabbit hole of the poor decisions and the poor choices. And that release, it's amazing. I felt like when I was releasing a lot of the baggage, it wasn't that I was going back down a rabbit hole, it's that I was following the baggage.
Right.
And now it's like there's a whole new environment, a whole new direction. So I'm seeing these changes and these updates that you're able to make with the Secret Place home. What are some other things that you're able to do now as you've released kind of that burden of trauma and you're starting to move into this thriving and healing space?
Well, I'm taking the Secret Place with me. I've traveled to the National Homeland Security Conference. I spoke there. I spoke at the Department of Children and Families Summit this past summer and the Fire Rescue International, which is fire chiefs from around the world coming together and sharing this story and educating and training and helping them see a victim in a criminal situation instead of arresting our victims and punishing them for being in a situation. So that part is beautiful. Working with our team at the Secret Place is amazing. I mean, you've got this tribe of sisters who are all trying really hard to do good work and steward things well.
Yeah.
We've got the girls who are at any level of their trauma, so they might be coming right out of it. They might still be in it, and then there's a few that are past it and trying to thrive.
Yes.
And how do they do that? So some of the things we do at the Secret Place are independent living. So we're doing GEDs and driver's training, domestic life skills, therapeutic modalities of every kind, because I wasn't good at talk therapy.
Right.
So we do art, music, equine. We have family counseling and individual counseling where we partner with other organizations and we train them and then they provide the service. So it's really a beautiful connection in our community. But one of the really cool things is when we get to just celebrate with the girls.
Yes.
And we try to make it like it's not a this for that mentality, because that's what trafficking is, right? So what we do is we kind of pro it. We're going to have fun, we're going to do hard work, and then we're going to celebrate how hard we worked.
I love that. Yes.
And that helps. So like Dillard's, we had a really awesome opportunity this past year to take them on a no strings attached shopping spree, and they got to do healthcare, medical, facial, and makeup. And so cosmetology really took on this initiative. Their entire department raised money for these girls to come shopping and get skincare and makeup.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I mean, they raised a couple $1,000s, and we brought these girls in to just go shopping. They still talk about it. They felt like celebrities walking in there, being able to just shop, and they're like, there's really no limit. Just get what you want. You know?
And it's those partnerships and collaborations, as I mentioned earlier, as I always do, we have this beautiful ability to connect and collaborate with others. And, Dillard is one of those great examples. I talked about the styling, but I also said there's a little more to it than that. It's that community presence and that ability to come together to say, you know what, your story is our story.
Right.
Let's help tell that story, but also let's celebrate where people are healing through.
Right.
And that is so important.
We're really seeing a lot of wins. These girls are getting their driver's license for the first time, and some might be 19, 20, 22.
Yeah.
They're getting their GEDs, and what's setting them apart is most of these victims are going to be behind in school.
Yeah.
And so they don't realize that they're 16 at an 8th grade level. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
So the GED puts them ahead of their peers.
Which
and then
feels so powerful.
Oh, it's awesome, because then they're like, I can do the next thing.
Yeah.
This isn't so scary because I have what's normal,
Yep.
right? Normalcy. So we also feed their families at least once a week. We partner with Food Raising Friends and other food pantries in the area to be able to navigate home visits and make sure they're
Yep.
eating.
We had Becca from Food Raising Friends on one of our previous episodes. So if you
Right.
guys haven't had a chance to watch that one, make sure you follow back up and watch Becca's episode so you can learn a little bit about some of that work with Food Raising Friends.
It is so cool to watch the evolution, right? We don't want people to start something new.
Yeah.
We want them to just do what they do really well and add anti-trafficking to it.
Yes.
That changes the game.
That changes everything.
So we don't have to be a city that says it doesn't happen here because we don't know about it and we're ignorant. We're a city that says, no, it doesn't happen here and this is how we fight it.
I love that.
And that is my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
So being able to like answer that question, like what do you do now, right? The choices are endless. The idea is to create this program that's so strong and can easily be sustainable and replicable. And we're actually trying to build up our line. We're calling it Shop TSP.
Okay.
And it is an opportunity to employ survivors to work a merchandise and retail space and really be able to give them not just the retail experience, right?
Yeah.
These girls are providers. They're entrepreneurs. So giving them a space to be the, account executive or the cashier is the exact same, right?
Yes.
For them, we're just getting their gifts and talents and putting them into their lane.
I love
and then
that.
fueling that lane with the positive affirmations that they need and the rides and childcare and food that they're going to have.
Yep.
So we're not ignorant to it. We love the survivor mentality, but we want them to thrive. And we really want them to feel like they're connected. So they don't graduate from the secret place. They become part of our survivor network. And this October, we're going to I'm hosting, but as a secret place, we're helping sponsor the second annual Survivor Retreat, which this community and communities from other areas have donated generously so that it's all expense paid for.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
They're going to see our beautiful Gulf Coast, right?
Yep.
We're going to feed them. We have a personal chef, massage therapist, counseling, and then just being outside in nature,
I love it.
All their transportation's taken care of. All of their logistics are going to be taken care of, their food, everything. So it's not competitive, right? It's a place to just rest. Because last year at the retreat, I asked 20 women from around the nation who came and gathered, who's your survivor leader helping you in your field right now? Not one of them had one. And these are FBI agents and pastors and lawyers and people like me doing nonprofit. And you're just like, wait, we're this generation of leaders. So we have to grow and develop, right? Nurture those next generation of leaders. So that's where I'm really excited to move into.
I love that. And Alicia, I think that's a perfect way for us. We could keep talking about this, but I want people to be able to keep connecting with you. What is the best way if someone wanted to be connected with you, be connected with the secret place, because they're like if you heard yourself in this story, I want to make sure you've got the resources you need. So what's the best way for people to reach out?
So we can connect through our website, thesecretplacehome.org. You can volunteer, and we do take volunteers that are from around the nation because the awareness and education is so important.
Yeah.
But you can give there. Every dollar goes right to survivors in our area, and it helps bring in those survivors from the nation to do the retreats. But you can connect there. My email is Alicia, ALICIA, .Tappan, TAPPAN, at thesecretplacehome.org. And I am happy to just do one-on-ones. If you need a virtual coffee, I'm your girl.
I love that.
Yeah.
Y'all, first of all, thank you, Alicia, for bringing a story that hits my heart so deeply, but so many people needed to be there today, and so many people needed to hear how do we go from here and what that looks like. So thank you for that. And thank you guys, as always, for tuning in and engaging with Fearlessly Made You. And a huge thank you as well to our wonderful styling partner, Dillard's, not just for the connection and the partnership we have, but for being part of this beautiful story that Alicia has shared today. And as always, friends, always stay tuned for the next episode of Fearlessly Made You.